had invited me for a birthday party. It was a late afternoon and then I was driving in my two-wheeler. Sure enough, the traffic would be not so heavy, so I was leisurely and casually driving my vehicle. And so happened then I reached the end of the road and there was a common turnover from both the ends of the road. So as I happened to turn, I had a bus which came immediately turning around, and then I was almost cornered to the side. It was almost very close to the road and then I would have just flipped and it was going to be a major mishap. But something came to my aid. Something came and helped me. What was it? It is an intuitive feeling. Whenever such incidents, most of the times we are protected by a mechanism in our brain which helps to help us, which actually tries to help us in such situations. See, consciously I would only know that I have to apply my brakes. Now because I have learned driving, it would have been in auto mode of how to operate the vehicle. But it so happened that when the bus immediately turned, I was in shock. And I didn't know what was that I applied. But then I had almost safely landed to freedom. Like I had safely landed, except that I was just had a small fall. Nothing else happened. I was safe and intact. What is this intelligence which tries to help us in moments of sudden accidents like this or sudden mishaps? I knew that it was not my conscious mind, nor was it my subconscious mind, but something where there's an integration of both these kinds of mind which helped me to overcome the situation, or which came to help me in this moment of an accident. I've definitely felt very grateful for the system, but there is a system which tries to help us most of the times. This is a glimpse of what mastery can happen. Most of the times, people who are geniuses in a particular field would have tried to tap the power of this mind, wherein it comes up with extraordinary solutions, which is humanly not possible. So it is much more than a human. So is it that a human being is not possible? It is not possible for a human being for such extraordinary performances? Or is it that a human being can tap into such extraordinary performances, is what we are going to discover in mastery. Mastery is humanly possible if we follow a particular process. This is one of the glimpses of mastery I had. There's another glimpse of mastery which we most of the times have is we have a deadline to face or a particular emergency situation which we have to handle. But in such situations, we don't have any answers. Our mind is blocked by fear, anxiety, worry, and we just don't know what to do. But under such situations, we get help from outer resources. Out of nowhere, people come to our help, and suddenly we get ideas and solutions which, when implemented, we get the solution. So how does this happen? Why is that only during such crisis moments we tap into this power of our brain? But you should know, masters in history thought that it was possible and they tried to tap this higher intelligence through a process, or they were naturally tuned to it. So let us see how is this process of mastery. We see the glimpses of mastery in a daily routine, where the other glimpse of mastery is when you feel highly connected and you want to help the society, you come up with a higher purpose. Other ways, the normal routines go very monotonous, very boring, involved in the daily activity. But this extraordinary power can be made a part of our living. It is not just that we only see the glimpses of such higher intelligence or power within us. There can be a flow of this power most of the times. But how do you find this glimpse of mastery become a part of a regular living is something which masters were able to tap, the masters were able to practice in their lives. So let us see, what is this mastery all about? Is it only the few elite people who are able to tap into mastery, or even every individual can become masters in their field of endeavor? Yes, mastery is a possibility for everyone. But the method or the system may be different, but mastery is equally possible to be attained by every individual. Before we enter into this process of mastery, I want you all to understand that each one of us are unique and each one are capable of attaining mastery. But we should not misunderstand mastery as a destination. Mastery is a process and not a destination. Like life, mastery is also a journey, and the destination only seems to be a pointer which helps us to create the necessary direction. The destination gives us the goal wherein we move in that particular direction, but mastery is all about the journey. It is not linear, like you take step 1, the sequentially followed by step 2, step 3, it is not like that. Mastery needs to be approached holistically. There need to be a holistic approach to mastery. Know that mastery is a journey and not a destination. The goal is fixed so that it leads us in a particular direction instead of distracting or dissipating our mental and other energies. So we are able to leverage all our energies in one focused direction. So the entire mind picks up all its resources from all the directions and then it just focused intensely on one particular activity, and then the momentum arises which helps us to tap this power and intelligence called mastery. What happens in this process? The second thing is, so the first point is mastery is a journey and not a destination. Mastery is not a linear process, it is a holistic process, it is a comprehensive process because there are several parts to mastery. So, here is the prism principle of life, which I want to explain life with the example or the metaphor of the spectrum effect of white light when it passes through a prism. When white light passes through a prism, it gets refracted into the 7 colors of a rainbow or a spectrum of colors that is Vibgyor. It is violet, indigo, blue, yellow, orange and red. What happens, it is a mistake that we do is, we take up one particular color. For example, I pick up the color red. There are certain principles to red, and then I check out the small portion of the white light and try to define white light with the help of this red light. Is it possible to define the whole by an individual part? Life can be lived by dealing in individual parts, but you cannot define life holistically if you are only sticking to a part. Most of the times in life, we just get transfixed to one aspect of life and try to keep proving and get fixed to it without outgrowing it and just become the frog in the well. Because we are not trying to explore the holistic nature of life. So life needs a comprehensive approach wherein every part has a particular principle. So we cannot take one part of life and say this is a universal principle which applies to life, the holistic approach. So a 360-degree purview is something which we have to always consider when it comes to life, or this principle applies to any aspect which has multiple factors influencing it. So when there are multiple factors influencing a particular thing, we cannot approach it based on individualistic steps or individualistic components. We have to address all the components when trying to look at the bigger picture. When we take a holistic picture, a more comprehensive view of it, that is when we are able to succeed most efficiently and we are able to tap the holistic nature of a human brain. So I want to tell you that this single principle can be applied to every other aspect of life. This is called the prism principle of life, wherein we have to deal with life holistically in a comprehensive way, addressing every part of the component which form the complete summation of the individual parts forms this one single component. So by just addressing one particular color, you're not going to define white light. in a similar way, by just addressing one part of life, we are not going to approach life holistically. For example, let us take the example of education. By just improving the IQ, do you think a child is prepared for life? No. The child needs training in academics, which includes development of the IQ. It requires emotional intelligence. The emotional quotient needs to be trained, and also the physical training into sports and other activity. So there is so much, there should be arts, there should be dance, there should be so many other things. There should be teaching of accounts and finances. So there are different dimensions to academics or education in life. So if we just teach one part, we become lopsided. So is life. So a holistic and comprehensive approach in life is a must to achieve overall mastery. So the second point is mastery is not linear, but it is a most holistic and comprehensive process. Everything about mastery can be explained with the help of the model of development of brain. Why is that? I consider it as very important that mastery is all about the development or evolution of a human brain. I strongly and authentically believe that mastery is a product of a highly performing brain at its peak efficiency and peak performance, where a person is able to master this evolved brain. The mastery of this evolved brain is the greatest instrument and the tool behind everybody achieving mastery. We know the journey of a human being, how he develops. In the process, the physical development and other developments, there's one core to it, and that's the development of the human brain along with the development of other systems of the body. This highly specialized instrument of human brain is something which has always fascinated me. The day was very important. This was my eureka moment during my anatomy class when I got this opportunity to hold the brain in my hand. They had just cut open the skull, removed the brain out of the human brain from the cadaver. The cadaver was lying down. We had to cut it with a seesaw. The skull was opened up, and they took out the brain and they just gave it to us to hold the brain in our hands. And that was my most epiphanic moment, because that is when I had the brain in my hand, the most powerful tool of existence which is gifted to human beings. We are the highly evolved beings in terms of intelligence because we have the most developed brain. For a moment I went blank because it was a moment of eureka. It was a moment of epiphany. It was a moment of euphoria for me for one particular reason. I was shocked and thrilled. I had an immediate gush of excitement and exhilaration because I was holding something which defined my world. My world is defined by my brain. The moment my brain is dead, I don't exist at all. As a human being, when my breath stops, I die. My heart stops, I die. But the other important thing is the brain dead. The moment my brain is destroyed, my world ends. So my entire world was a product of this brain. And it was the most exciting moment for me to hold the brain. I felt as though I was a winner holding the entire world in my hand. That was the greatest moment of epiphany for me. And then it was that since then that I started to explore my brain. And I have been doing a lot of research on brain and mind power. Brain is an excellent tool. The electrical activity of the brain is the brain. This brain is the source of many inventions and discoveries in history. So this is the miracle a human being is born with. And holding this organ and instrument, which is a miracle, was the most exhilarating moment for me. And from then on, directly or indirectly, I have been, doing a lot of research in brain, and I have also been attracting a lot of subjects which are dealing with mind mastery and brain mastery. So when it comes to the process of mastery, I want you to just focus on this development of brain. Since childhood to you becoming an adult, even leading you to the most genius discoveries and inventions, it is all leading because of the evolution of this human brain. And now I will simplify this process of explanation of mastery just on this evolution of brain. How the development of this brain takes place during our journey of mastery. So let us see how this brain is playing a role, how the development of our brain is playing a role in our becoming masters of life. The first principle which the author, I was actually inspired by this book Mastery because it closely associated with my journey of mastery in life. So I wanted to explain this first chapter, the Introduction to Mastery, based on me connecting it to several principles. So while the author tries to describe what mastery is not, what mastery is, I am just connecting it to one single example, the development of the brain, and trying to give you a holistic picture. Mastery is a journey and not a destination. Mastery needs a holistic approach, a comprehensive approach, and not. You should give enough time for the process to happen. It's like it's not a 2-minute Maggie magic, but it is a lifetime mastery. So you cannot expect 2 minutes Maggie magic here, but mastery is a long process. It definitely need to invest a considerable amount of time, probably 2 years, 3 years, minimum of 2 to 5 years is something which is a time required for the development of mastery. I will be explaining to you the process of mastery in the next phase, but let's look at the interpretations of the characteristics of mastery. Mastery definitely needs some time to be invested. You cannot attain mastery in desperation. It is a matter of perspiration and not desperation. You need to work and give enough time of patience, perseverance and perspiration to achieve mastery. There are certain principles which apply to every design of life. So are these principles applying to the development of brain, and also these principles apply to the development of mastery. The first principle is in nature or nurture. Nature versus nurture has always been a topic of debate for several years. What influences the development of a human being? The development of a human being, the development of a human brain, or the development of mastery is something which can be described with the following principle of nature versus nurture. Is heredity the reason for mastery? Let us discuss the principle of heredity. Definitely, each of one has a unique blueprint of genes. If you check anyone in the world, you find a unique blueprint in the form of your genes. It's your physical blueprint of genes, which defines your expression as a human being in all forms, be it physical, mental, intellectual, emotional. The characteristics as a personality is developed by your genetic blueprint. The genetic blueprint defines your expression. So is nature. So every individual has a certain quality associated with him depending on this genetic blueprint. So your first level of mastery definitely comes as your inclinations or predilections to certain fields. Somehow certain people have a great passion or predilection for a certain kind of sports, dance, maybe they are mathematical geniuses, or they are very good at inventions and discoveries. So how does this happen? So it is because of the inbuilt genetic mechanism which is trying to express itself. So definitely mastery has a component of nature to it, which is determined by the genetics. Next is the nurture. What happens? People who have this intense passion somehow by chance enter into a career path which helps them to nurture this kind of passion they have. They develop an intense desire to nurture this passion, so they get into an apprentice phase, also called as a practice phase in that particular field. They develop the career step by step, and finally there's a moment where they become so creative and they have the exalted state of creative. The brain becomes so efficient, comes to its maximum efficiency, and that's how they become masters in their line of interest. A famous actor, a star, all these development basically can be the source as being a particular interest in one particular line of field. So a particular interest in a particular line of field is something which determines the development of mastery in a particular field. Next is nature versus nurture. So the kind of influences you get from the outside world, you choose a particular career path, but definitely you're going to attain mastery with the help of practice. So if you're going to nurture mastery by investing your time and efforts in learning the process, practicing the process, learning the rules of the game. So initially we need to observe the rules of the game. The moment you get into practice mode, you learn the rules and practice the game, you reach another phase of creative active phase where you become so creative and you start developing new ideas and give your whole new individuality. You put in your individuality to mastery, and that is the second step of mastery where nurture plays an important role. Function defines form is another principle which I want to talk about mastery, wherein you take up a particular function and based on that function you have to mold the current certain design in you have to approach. You have to practice certain qualities or you have to develop certain competence to meet that function. So that's how the purpose of life is defined. So I believe I was in constant search of purpose of life. But now today I believe that there's no purpose to life except the purpose that you create. Life tries to customize your purpose. So please don't go looking in search of your purpose, but rather create your purpose and take it up to the level of mastery, and then you create your own purpose of life. You make it more meaningful by undergoing this process of mastery with a lot of sincerity. The first principle is the nature versus nurture principle. The second principle is the principle of form and function. The third principle which I want to share with you is use and disuse. The moment you start using something, it progressively enhances it. It reaches a certain level of excellency. So consistency and practice is something, the moment you start using things, it gains a particular proficiency level. But the moment you stop not using any organ for that matter, if you're not using that organ in your body, it is lost. You lose it because it's no longer used. Life tries to remove it. It tries to dispose of that. Similarly, the quality of mastery, if you're interested in a particular field, so everything that is required to preserve or make you become proficient in that field will be preserved by life. But the moment you're not using it, life tries to discard it. This is called as the use and disuse principle which applies to mastery. So the moment you're using something, for example, if you have a talent of singing and you keep on singing, then you train yourself in singing, then you'll reach a particular mastery in singing. But the moment you do not sing or take it into a practice, what happens? Slowly you lose it. You might only be an occasional singer or you just become a bathroom singer. But singing does not become a field in which you will master. Performance leadership. Anything that you practice long enough and you persist practicing it becomes a part of your genetic imprint and also a part of your mental programming. Practice makes a man permanent, goes this quote. This is a powerful saying that practice makes man permanent. So is this action performance leadership. The moment you take up one particular skill, for example, you want to become a cricketer, day and night, you practice the field, you want to become the world famous cricketer, then you will be practicing day and night. It depends on whether you want to getting into batting or bowling. So whenever you're getting to either of this, when you want to master a particular sport, then you practice it day and night to achieve the level of efficiency and mastery in that particular group or field. So practice is something which helps you to attain mastery. So action performance leadership is wherein whatever happens, you persist, you have patience and you continue to practice until you become master in that particular field is another principle which applies to mastery. Mastery is not a product of heredity or genes alone. It can also be nurtured through practice, through use, regular use, and it can also be nurtured by continuous practice. One more important thing which I want to tell you is the human willpower has always been the greatest power and tool, the conviction which I was talking to you about in most of my previous episodes. The human willpower has a major role in developing your mastery. You might have not been born with a particular talent, or you don't have a passion, but if you fix your mind on a particular goal and have this conviction and the purpose to achieve it, then you step into the field of mastery. One more important thing with mastery is, very primarily, you have a certain kind of interest or a predilection or a certain kind of passion to achieve a particular field. But the other thing about mastery is the human willpower. What happens is the desire, and you're so focused in attaining that field, the connection is so deep with that particular field, that what happens, the long hours of practice does not matter to you. Sometimes the boredom, so every field, the moment you start is exciting, the moment you end it up, it becomes boring. But when you have this sense of mastery towards a particular subject, you feel extremely excited. You are in a zone performance. You feel, the entire energy. You don't feel like sleeping. You are able to bear the long hours of practice, the long hours of hard process. You want to learn more. You have inquisitiveness. You want to go about learning, do a lot of research on the particular field. You are ready to practice in spite of all the hurdles. So that is what indicates the kind of mastery in the subject you can achieve. So that gives you an indication of the mastery of the subject. So, and moreover, there are several hurdles, like you have a lot of envious people, you have a lot of envious procedures, you have tough systems, tough levels to be crossed. But your predilection, the desire to attain mastery, is a deeper feeling, an inner calling, which helps you to surpass all these obstacles. So this is a sign of you getting into that subject of mastery. So mastery has several components, and I have considered mastery very equivalent to the development of a brain, with certain principles which apply to mastery. Mastery requires a certain amount of time. It requires action, performance, leadership in terms of developing it as a habit. So the moment you develop habit, you practice it so much, the particular subject becomes a habit in you, and it's no longer outside you. It becomes a part of your inner mechanism. That is what this principle of mastery is about. So the following principles explain the development of the brain and also the development of mastery. So this is what mastery could all mean. So it is not just a matter of heredity. It's something which can be developed if you follow a very simple process to mastery. Like the development of the brain, there are few principles which apply to every aspect of life. These are the principles which apply to mastery as well. One is nature versus nurture. The second one is form follows function. The third one is the use and the disuse theory. And the fourth one is the action performance leadership, which requires the use of practice and also your willpower. So this is how the journey of mastery is going to be explained in terms of several principles. It's very important to know that mastery is just not the matter of highly intellectual beings. Though we believe that academics is something which is going to make us help achieve mastery, it's very important to also develop the necessary EQ. The IQ plus EQ is something, and also important is to develop the necessary skills and competence. Just having a high IQ does not guarantee you mastery. So only having a high EQ will also not guarantee you mastery, because you also have to develop the necessary skills. So here is a holistic approach to mastery with the help of certain principles. The moment you keep using things, what you use will persist. What you don't use, you're going to lose. These are the certain principles which are going to describe mastery. So mastery is a power and intelligence which represents the highest point of human potential. It is a source of greatest discoveries and inventions in history. We have seen glimpses of it during crisis situations or situations where there's been an emergency. mastery is also a product of long-term practice, where a person devotes himself with a lot of dedication and sincerity to one particular field, where he persists, he perceives, and with a lot of patience he practices, he becomes a master in that particular field of sports, science, arts, and whatnot. So this was the introductory session of mastery. Thank you so much. Have a great life ahead. Let the steps to mastery begin. With every step, do not always ask what is going to happen, because you will be shocked at the miracle that unfolds. Did a single seed know that it's going to be a huge tree creating a fruit, which in turn will yield seeds, which will give rise to a legacy of trees further? Never. So would we never know what this journey of mastery will lead us into. So keep on putting efforts at every step, because life unfolds itself like the blossoming of a flower, like the fruit that develops from a flower, and finally you don't know what legacy is ahead of you. This was an introduction session of mastery, and let us step into the first step of mastery with the upcoming session of finding out your inner calling, your life task.